Welcome back, everybody. Very excited about this week. We've got Rob Mc Gill, director of Fraser Mc Gill, with us today. He's the second rock engineer we have on our show, and today I'm very excited because we're going to talk all things maths and physics as starting out in your career, but then you're also going to progress into geotechnical engineering or rock engineering. Some of us know it that way. And just talk a little bit about Rob's career and also how he's been building a fantastic consulting business that's doing amazing work. And so, Rob, good morning. How are you?
Morning, Christo. Very well, thanks. And thanks for having me.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to this one. You've been a busy man, and pinning you down is quite a challenge, but we eventually got it going during the World Cup. And I love your jersey this morning. I don't have mine on. I feel like, whoa, what am I doing here? Yeah, Rob, so thanks a lot. And yeah, would you mind introducing yourself a little bit to our audience and tell us a little about how your career started out? I actually, until we've had this conversation and prepping for this one, I didn't realize that you're also like one of those propeller heads that started with maths and physics as a start. And yeah, really interested in your career as a start, and sharing a bit of that would be a great start for us.
Yeah, thanks, Christo. Yeah, I sort of had an interesting kind of introduction to mining. I never studied mining. I had no intention of going into mining, but I kind of got into it by accident. A friend of mine from university had studied geology, and he was working at Vaal Reefs. And having finished at university and not really knowing what I wanted to do, I didn't study a particular career field. I did a kind of broad BSc, as you mentioned. And having traveled a little bit, getting back to South Africa, I wasn't really doing anything constructive. And going up to visit him in Orkney, he basically convinced me to have an interview. I think he was keen to not be the only English speaking person on the. So yeah, I had the interview. I had nothing else going on at the time, so I accepted a job at Vaal Reefs in the rock engineering department, and it was something of a new field. I must say the first few months were pretty much hell. It was the winter, and it was a very difficult environment to get up very early and go underground. And I really felt like a fish out of water.
Yeah.
But I've kind of found it strangely growing on me. Got to meet people, had the opportunity to kind of play a bit of rugby in the kind of mine league there. And, it kind of started growing on me. And that was Anglo-American at the time. There were a lot of opportunities to study and to get various rock engineering qualifications. As I say, it was quite a new field, so there were quite a lot of positions available. And having sworn at the beginning of my career that I would not last a year, I'm still kind of at it. So yeah, I just found that I kind of grew into it. And after a few years, I was transferred to Western Deep Levels, and I must say, I really found my niche there.
Yeah.
It was an amazing place, just an incredible family atmosphere. Everyone pulled together to help each other. It was a real different environment. Vaal Reefs was nice, but it was kind of a disjointed collection of shafts. Western Deep Levels was kind of like a family, and I really loved my time there. I was appointed as the rock engineering manager at Penang. And yeah, it was an amazing place. Tough environment to work in. From a rock engineering perspective, it doesn't get any tougher. Deepest mines in the world, very challenging from a seismicity perspective. But it was incredibly rewarding. I think, from being probably a struggling mine at the time when I started, and Penang became probably the most productive and the most profitable and probably one of the safest mines in the group. Having really struggled, we introduced a lot of new things there. The mine did 1 million fatal free shifts for the first time in its history while I was there, and went on to do it several times after that. And it was just a great place to work at. So yeah, that was my rock engineering, and I really loved it. I think my learnings from that were just if you get the opportunity to learn a business from the bottom up, it's not that important what discipline you're in, whether it's mining or rock engineering or geology. It's just kind of understanding the nuts and bolts of the business,
Yeah.
spending time with people underground, solving challenges together, and just kind of being part of a team. So yeah, I really love that.
Yeah.
But I must say, I found myself becoming more and more interested in the business as a whole and the sort of mining value chain. I
Mm.
realized that I didn't really want to stay focused just on one technical aspect. And even though, as you say, I did have a kind of technical background, I actually found myself more and more interested in the kind of business aspects that made the mine tick.
Mm.
So, yeah, after a great 10 years in rock engineering, I came across an opportunity to move into a projects department that was newly created, and that given the kind of at the time a good gold price and a lot of bullish sentiment around gold, Anglo Gold, Ashanti as it had become by then, was looking at developing some of its deposits, brownfields, greenfields deposits. And we went on quite an aggressive kind of project journey. And
Yeah.
I joined that team and got into project management and project studies.
Wow. Rob, so did you just take a pause to continue, or is that sort of a pause for me? Just want
Just
to
I
check.
thought I'd take a pause. I'm conscious of talking too much.
No,
There's
no,
more, but I would just take a breather.
no, no. You're such a good communicator. So I just want to check there, Rob. But for someone that you've mentioned, you've gone through not knowing what you're getting yourself into, and I think a lot of us in our careers arrive at that point that we say, "Geez, what did I get myself into?" Uh, were there times with you, you mentioned that, but how difficult was it then? And what did you do to, say it grew on you, but was there something specific that you had to like discipline yourself? Or what would you tell a younger Rob that's going through a similar process? Maybe they in mechanical engineering or whichever other technical field in mining, but they're going through the same process.
Yeah, I think that the thing that I learned right from the start is, if you're going to start from the bottom up, you're not going to be accepted easily, especially if you come from a different background, maybe a different culture. And that's kind of human nature. And, you can't be put off by that. You've got to prove yourself. And you've also got to take an interest in people outside of work. You've got to get involved with activities, sports, whatever it is. If you don't embrace the community that you're working in, you're not going to get that acceptance. So yeah, I must say it was tough at the beginning, but I mean, I knew that I had to learn a lot more about the mine and mining people than just my discipline. That wasn't going to crack it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's the message to people is just embrace it. You're not just there for a couple of years and then you're gone. It's for me, it's been 30 years and I've got relationships that I had back then that I
Mm.
still have and people that I still work with. And that's the important thing is really to stick with it and, kind of embrace it, don't run away from it.
That's amazing. And you then also did a BCom. Is that sort of where you started saying, I need a business background?
No, that was to try and get out of mining. No, man, I thought I should study something and that kind of appealed to me. But just studying through correspondence through UNISA when you kind of trying to work, it was difficult. I mean, I look back at it now, and it was useful, but I think it was just really trying to do something different.
Okay.
Yeah, it was kind of one of those things. I think in terms of studying, I was really fortunate to be able to study rock engineering qualifications. I
Yeah.
mean, those were not only technical in nature, but they also taught me a lot about mining and also
Mm.
mining outside of the deep level tabular sphere that I was operating in.
Mm.
And then I was fortunate enough to do the WITS GDE, which was a great course at the time. You know, you could do multiple courses in mining engineering, and I loved that. Also met a lot of people, and then yeah, that kind of really got me on that path. So yeah, I think the BCom is long forgotten.
So talk to us about now you're into this project environment and what happened after that.
Yeah, well, that was one of the first big changes in my career. So moving out of rock engineering. But to be honest, because I was staying in Anglo Gold at the time, it was not that scary because I was still working with people that I knew. In
Mm.
fact, the guy who I started working for in the project section, a guy called Nigel Trevathan, he was an ex-general manager, guy that I knew well, and you know, great visionary. So I was very comfortable in that environment. I had to learn a lot of things about uh, you know, different disciplines that I hadn't been exposed to, but I was kind of doing deepening projects on the South African mines, things that I understood well.
Mm.
So yeah, there was learnings, but it wasn't that kind of scary. I think the important thing that I learned there was just convincing committees and boards and various other kind of groups that you're on the right track. So it was about communicating to different audiences rather than just focusing on technical issues, looking at valuation, risk, opportunity to the business, because you know mining projects are not just about financials. You know, they're long term.
Yeah.
There are a lot of facets to them. So I mean that
Yeah.
that was great, and it was a great learning. But I think the company was changing. Anglo Gold Ashanti became kind of more global. A lot of the South African kind of based management and knowledge was kind of moving out of the business. And I kind of again, after 4 or 5 years in that environment, which was fantastic, you know, I ended up moving out of the South African projects, doing a lot of African projects as well. You know, traveling up to mines in Africa and projects. So it was great. But it got to a point where we kind of stagnated a little bit and many projects were shelved. It was just the environment at the time. And again, I sort of started wanting to look at a potential change. And I sort of looked around and I opted to move into the consulting field. I joined a company called TWP, which was an EPCM company and was largely focused on underground hard rock mining. I'd encountered them, some colleagues of mine had gone across there, and that was a major change for me. Moving out of Anglo Gold after whatever it was, 15 years, was pretty scary, I must say. And it was touch and go. You know, you get to the point where do you stick around and continue your career there, or do you make a change? You know,
Mm.
I was well entrenched there, knew the system, knew the people.
Mm.
You know, had a good job there, good perks, but I knew that I was bored. It was starting to affect me. I
Mm.
think my wife could see that I wasn't happy in what I was doing, and I think primarily, you know, you've got to feel um, excited. You've got to feel passionate. You've got to feel fulfilled in what you do. It's
Mm.
not just a question of job security and salaries. So yeah, after a while, I knew that I had to make a move, and I joined TWP in the mining department. My boss, who'd recruited me after 2 weeks in the company, told me he was leaving and that I had to take over his role. So that became extremely scary because I still didn't have a clue what the business did and really what consulting and EPCM was all about. So yeah, it was an amazing journey. It was an incredible company at the time, very entrepreneurial. It had already grown quite large, but it hadn't lost the kind of owner, founder, kind of entrepreneurial driven spirit of the company. I
Mm.
just was supported in so many ways by people that I worked with and worked for to really go out there, do things, make mistakes, And it was multi-commodity. It was really what I needed. And I
Yeah.
felt what I'd learned at Anglo Gold was very, very valuable and that I could apply it. And that was the scary
Oh,
part when you start off in a multi-commodity environment. You think that, that you don't really know what you're doing.
yes.
I just felt that I could apply what I'd learned. Obviously, I needed to learn a lot more. And I gradually built a department that ended up at about probably 60 people that was doing the kind of mining technical side, which is geology, rock engineering, mine planning, mining engineering, various engineering disciplines, and financial valuation. So, yeah, we did project studies and lots and lots of different assignments and studies, and it was exciting. Really every day was different, wonderful environment to work in, and yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it. But I think the 5 year kind of thing hit me again as TWP was bought out by a global listed company called Worley Parsons, and again, it was exciting at first. We were exposed to lots of global projects, traveled a lot, did a lot of work in the Australian jurisdiction. But I think the nature of the business, it was just kind of too big for me.
Mm.
I liked really being close to customers, big listed companies like that, because of the risks and the kind of environment they operate in. They have systems and procedures that kind of almost seem to keep you away from your customer. I know
Yeah.
it's not like that exactly, but that's how it felt to me.
Yes.
And I'm not pointing fingers at anyone or criticizing the company. They
Yeah.
just operate in a different framework.
Yeah.
For me, I wanted to kind of be close to my customers. And yeah, by that time, I'd met up with a guy called Fraser. We'd worked together on quite a few assignments, both before he joined Worley and then after, when I brought him into the business from Deloitte, where we'd been working together on quite a lot of Anglo Gold Capital projects. And yeah, I just knew that I needed to make a move. And one day we were traveling together in Botswana on an assignment, and I mentioned it to him. And yeah, he said, sounds good. He's coming along.
Let's go for it.
So we started Fraser Mc Gill, two of us, kind of in Quibus's dining room and in various coffee shops. And we took a while to figure out what we should do. But yeah, that was the start of it.
Amazing. I listen to this and I'm so inspired because you have to have fun in your career, and a lot of what you're talking about is having fun and enjoying what you're doing. And important to you is being close to the customer. Talk to me about that, because a lot of geotechnical engineers that I've also worked with really struggled in the beginning of their careers to be close to the customer. And in some cases, it's just close to that production mining manager or general manager running the mine, and understanding that they've got a unique service delivery. They're adding value by their technical knowledge and experience and what they're doing, whether it's studies or EPCM work. But it's also been my experience working with you on some stuff that you are very customer focused. You listen really well. You understand their world, but you allow them also just to express themselves and their needs, and you respond to those needs. Talk to our younger selves and other consultants that are in this business about why is that so important? Because you're obviously getting it right, because you've built this business from, this was like, I think 2016 when you started, and it's now 2023, and you've grown significantly. But that wouldn't have been possible if you didn't do a great job at understanding the needs of the customer, being close to the customer. And because people come back and say, I want more of this, and they talk to other clients, other potential your clients, and then you get more work. And it's really about that, that principle. But help us understand that, because you'd certainly have a recipe that works.
Yeah, Christo, I think, just going back to my rock engineering days, especially at Western Deep levels, you can approach a kind of technical discipline in one of two ways. Either you can go underground, tell people what they need to do, give them a report, and kind of walk away and tell them, well, it's up to you whether you implement it or not. You must bear the consequences. Or you can realize that everyone's in it together. You go underground and you see how people work. You've got to care for those people. You've got to realize that what you're doing is important to them.
Mm.
And if you can't create a safer, more productive environment, their health and their future is at risk. And I would make sure that whatever I figured needed to be done was practical, and that I made sure that it got done, not just by threatening people that, if they don't do this, they're going to bear the consequences. But I mean, I'm sure, like you've experienced, I mean, I know what it's like to be in a rescue and
Yeah.
be underground where people are being rescued and there's injuries and the consequences of getting things wrong. And
Mm.
Western Deep Levels was such a dynamic environment that if you got it wrong, immediately you'd bear the consequences. So, yeah, I was absolutely committed to not finding and communicating the solution, but making sure that the solution actually was put into practice and worked. And I
Mm.
think that is success, to have things that are put on the shelf for a rainy day is not of value in my mind. And I think that's the key in what we do now. It's not just the scope of work in case. We like to get involved with things that can genuinely influence the business or the customer's business for the good.
Yeah.
And to do that, you have to make sure that what you do is the right thing, it's practical, it's well understood, and it can be implemented. And my preference is to be involved with the whole process.
Yeah.
Firstly, it's better for my business and our business because obviously we stay involved for a long term, but it also makes sure that the customer knows that you're prepared to stand by what you've put on paper and
Yes.
that you are prepared to help them to get it right. So working with a customer is always been a close relationship thing for me. And yeah, it's something that I'd like to continue to do and make sure that I take each assignment personally. I can't get involved with everything in detail, but I need to make sure that the customer sees that I've been involved in some way and that, the kind of Fraser Mc Gill um, kind of quality and promise is pulled through in every assignment, no matter what the size. And I think for us, that's kind of easier to do in the junior to mid-tier space. I'm not saying we don't work with the big guys. We're happy to work with anyone and we appreciate every customer. But I think the junior to mid-tier space, especially as the industry's involved,
Mm.
means the customer cannot be surrounded by large owners teams in a corporate environment. They
Yeah.
do rely on relationships with third parties. So yeah, that's been the philosophy in terms of working with customers.
Love your answers and your approach. When you get so involved that you've got skin in the game, you really want to see a decision through or recommendation through and work with a customer. Surely there's times that you are, call it fearful or some anxiety about, is this going to work out the way we planned it, or how we believe that it's work, what we're going to do. Talk to us about dealing with that fear or maybe anxiety of seeing through your decisions, because a lot of us are fearful of making a decision because it may not turn out to be the right decision.
Yeah, I think the first thing is you've got to be thorough. You've got to make sure that you do the work. You can't rely on kind of gut feel and sort of anecdotal type of evidence before you make a recommendation. So you need to be thorough. You need to make sure that you work closely with a customer in understanding the environment that the project is going to operate in, because a solution, you can have the right solution, but in the wrong environment or the wrong culture, it may not work. So, you need to involve the customer very closely in the project to make sure that they're on board. And then you've also got to make sure, and this is a big thing for me. I tend to be very, very pushy when I think that I've found the right solution. You've got to be able to take a step back. Even though you may think it's the right thing, it may not be the right thing, or the timing may not be quite correct. So you've got to be a little bit patient also, and make sure that you can come up with something that the customer can deal with and is palatable to the customer. And sometimes it means doing things in stages, just pulling back a little bit. So, I think that's the key thing. But yeah, anxiety is always there. I mean, quality and um, the completeness and the thoroughness is something that's always in the back of my mind. That's my biggest concern in the business. It's not kind of being paid or the commercial side. That's important, but I really take the quality personally, and I absolutely hate dropping the ball. But the other thing to note is that you will make mistakes. The relationship you have with your customer and that trust makes the process of making mistakes, dusting yourself off, starting again, it makes that possible. And as a team, you can do that. I'm not encouraging that happens too often. But
Yeah.
if you don't have that close relationship with your customer, you drop the ball once, and then it's just it's just out the door, and you don't get anywhere. So yeah, there is anxiety, but yeah, you also can't be scared to move in and do something, and facilitate decisions. But remember, it's the customer's decision. You need to support that. You can't push your own decisions onto the customer. You can
Mm.
recommend and support and facilitate.
And how do you deal with a customer making the wrong decision? Uh, that happens, must happen at times.
Absolutely. I think the first thing is you've got to be humble. You can't think that you know better, or that you would have done something better or differently. You've got to understand the customer's perspective. Sometimes there's a lot of inexperience. Sometimes there's lack of support from a customer organization, and the customer often operates in a different environment than a consultant operates in. You don't have the
Mm.
same pressures and drivers. So I think firstly, you've got to be humble and understanding. You've got to kind of put yourself in their shoes, and you also got to realize that bad decisions and wrong decisions get made every day. It's not the end of it.
Yeah.
And I think, again, if there's a relationship, you've got the opportunity to kind of help customers and organizations through difficult times.
Yeah.
And I mean, often there are projects that are not optimal. You've got to execute something that could be done better, but there isn't the opportunity to change it right away. You've got to gradually influence it and improve things. So, yeah, that's part of the job. The only thing worse than bad decisions is not making any decisions. And that really frustrates projects and businesses,
Yeah.
where you don't move forward.
Especially if you're entrepreneurial as well, and you say you work more with juniors and smaller type organizations, they are a lot more agile, and they do move a lot quicker, and they do get decisions made quicker, and so that helps. That decisions must be made, and sometimes you fall flat on your face. But that's amazing. You talk about being humble, and I've also getting to know you. You make comments like being blessed, being humbled. You are a humble person, but that is also such an important leadership trait. And in terms of staying grounded, is there something that you do, because you've had a lot of success, and it's so easy for us to get a chip on our shoulders, and thinking that we've arrived, and I am now the man or the woman that have arrived, head of the department, or head of the business, or I've started this successful consulting company. How important is it to you to stay grounded?
Yeah, Christo, look, I think if I see what's happened in many um, organizations, it's kind of when they lose their link to the entrepreneur or the founder or the key person or people that kind of made them successful. Once that link is lost, uh, customers see that, the market sees it. That kind of trust starts to move out, and employees see it as well. And I think it's probably limiting because it does limit your ability to grow. But for me, I need to be part of the team. Um, yes, I've got a responsibility to lead the team in some ways, not always, but I need to stay part of the team. And it's important in two aspects. First of all, I need to be doing assignments and projects. If I stop doing that, I just don't feel relevant. When you start off in consultancy, um, you've got to have a skill. You've got to be able to do something that people will pay money for. It can be anything, but you've got to have something that's
Yes.
unique
Yes.
and that people will come after. And you need to keep doing that. Now you'll develop different skills in different areas in the journey, but you've got to maintain that. Otherwise, you become an overhead, so to speak.
Yes.
And I think that the key thing is to stay part of the mix. So I work on many projects. I'm the project manager on one of our feasibility studies, which is fantastic. And I get involved as a team member. So that's important. And also, it gives team members an opportunity to rub shoulders with you and with one another. And we learn from each other.
Yeah.
We don't have mining assets. We just have whiteboards and boardrooms. So we can't give some of our younger guys and ladies the same experience that many of us had,
Yeah.
but we can teach them and we can interact. So first of all, being part of the team, not just in name, interacting as part of the team. And the second thing is not removing yourself from the team. It's to make sure that you stay in the open plan office. You don't decide that, you've got now a new floor where all the management or the corporate guys move to. I've seen that so many times. People think they're just creating more space, but what they're doing is creating layers in the organization. And at Fraser Mc Gill, we have no layers. We've got a flat structure.
Mhm.
It may be to our detriment one day when we kind of grow. And I'll say this with greatest respect to HR people, but I've always said to Quibus, when we get an HR department, I'm retiring, and I'm not taking anything away from the needs of organizations, but we're trying to keep it simple,
Yeah.
flat, interactive, and people need not just to hear that you a kind of humble leader or you part of the team, they need to see it. So you need to participate in different events, keep close to your people, understand what they're going through personally or work-wise. And yeah, it's probably, you're probably limited to a certain size of organization. But if that's the case, I'm very, very happy with that. That's how I like to operate.
I'm having so much fun, Rob. I've not heard this ever before from any leader, what you have just said, to be part of that team and to still play. You're the team captain, but you don't sit on the pavilion or the grandstand and you shout instructions to the team that's playing. You're actually on the field, and the World Cup is now taking place. This podcast might come out a little bit later than when the World Cup is done, but that is such a profound statement. Stay active, play with the team, be with them, rub shoulders with them, be in the trenches with them. And it's a wonderful model of coaching and mentoring and transferring your skills of many years. I appreciate what you just shared with us. This is so profound, everybody. I hope you're going to listen to this again, because this is a gem that Rob just shared with us. Rob, I'm conscious of your time, and I know you've got another meeting coming up. Anything else that you also passionate about? Because we'll have to get you back because there's so much that I've learned this morning. But anything else that you're passionate about that you would love to share or just leave with us this morning?
Christo, I'll very closely related to working with customers. I'll just talk a little bit about networking, because it's very, very important. And it's kind of interesting because I wouldn't have described myself as being outgoing. I'm not particularly outgoing, yet I've learned the value of networking. And it sounds like a little bit of a cliche when people talk
Mm,
about it.
mm,
But there's a saying that says that it's not what you know, it's who you know.
yeah,
And it's not quite true in consulting because, as I've mentioned to you early on, you have to know something. You
yeah,
have to be known for some skill, but it's no good having the skill and sitting there on your own trying to hone it. In the consulting environment, you need to work with other people. You need to partner with people that have different skills if you're going to solve a problem. And also, you have to have customers. So I think the other thing probably that I've learned a lot, and it was not evident, obviously, working for Anglo Gold because your networks are there by default in terms of the people you work with.
yes.
But moving into consulting, I mean, you realize the importance. And, just a couple of comments about it. Um, first of all, that there's kind of two ways to really approach consulting. Either you sit around, you kind of, you work for a company that has a brand and has a business development department, and you sit around waiting for kind of tenders to come in, and then you respond to them and you fight like hell against 10 competitors to get work.
Yeah.
Or you just get close to your customer and your network and you try and figure out what problems people have and you try and solve them or propose solutions before people have taken the time to put out a scope of work. And I must say, the network that I've developed, being in the mining industry is small. That's the advantage of it. It's global. People that I've worked with have moved all over the world. And networking is a personal thing. I think this is where many big companies fall down. And again, I'm not being critical, but it's just the reality. They see networking as being a brand issue. They have
Mm,
people that are employed to go to conferences and write articles and do things where they promote themselves as the brand. Networking is not like that. It's a personal thing. It's not the brand that you're representing. It's you as an individual and the people you know. People trust you as an individual. Obviously, in
mm,
Fraser Mc Gill, we've got the opportunity to kind of link the individual and the brand because, it's a founder owned and run company.
mm.
But the amazing thing that I've seen, and I'll kind of leave this, as my last point, is that networking, you don't have to have been around for 30 years. Obviously, it's advantageous to get to know people.
Yeah.
And I must say, when we started the business, the first thing we did was just spend months and months and months drinking coffee with people, even if the links were fairly tenuous,
Yes.
just developing that network. And every day, even if we're very, very busy, which we're fortunate to be at the moment, I never stop developing the business in terms of relationships. Picking up the phone, sending an email, reminding people where you are, what you're doing, catching up with people, developing new relationships. You never have enough of those. And just one encouraging thing, just working with my team is, we've got so many young, amazing, high performing people, but they are developing their own networks. And this is the amazing thing
Yeah.
is that, working on projects, getting to know people in mining companies, they are developing their own work, and their own relationships.
Yes.
And this network that goes out, they don't have to rely on people like me that have been around for a long time.
Yeah.
It's just this kind of snowball that grows, but
Wow.
it's on the back of being able to deliver good quality work and the customer seeing that you really are interested in them and you spend time with them. So just to see people developing their own networks has been amazing. And I mean, that's what the business is all about. I think any business. But yeah, it's not a corporate role. It's an individual's role and responsibility. And as I said, in many big firms, that's now removed from the individuals, and a lot of that is taken away, especially with the COVID and the work from home. I'm not criticizing that model, but people kind of lose touch. And I think,
Yeah.
yeah, I love networking. As I said, I'm not the most outgoing person, but those links are critical to the business. And especially in the tough times. That's what you've got to draw from.
Yes.
There's not a lot of new things in the industry. You've got to go back to those that you've worked with. And it's not just customers in your network, it's future employees and it's consulting partners, like the partnership we have with you, Christo, where we've worked on a few things together. That's what it's all about. You can't do everything yourself. So yeah, just a little note on networking.
That's not a little note. That's a big gem. It is awesome. I'm actually reading a book on that at the moment. And last night on the plane, I was actually just, making some notes. And, I spoke to somebody in the week, says, you can't treat a book like that. But I've just got this different color pen and I'm just making notes and writing stuff because it is such a critical skill for us in as entrepreneurs and networking, but not only in, when you a consultant or when you are running a company or being an entrepreneur, but it's also in your professional career. If you're in a corporate environment and you're building a corporate career, being able to network and understand that you don't have all the solutions, but other people have got wonderful other skills and there's this collage of capability out there. And as long as you keep those relationships strong, you will always have somebody that will help you solve a problem. And that, I guess, is the magic of the world that we're in. Rob, it's been absolutely amazing. Fortunately, I didn't make the notes because I would have made a lot of noise here, but it has been absolutely amazing. Any final words on your end to leave us with, apart from the networking one?
No, man, just to say the mining industry is a fantastic place. One thing we've never done is stepped out of it. We've stuck to what we know, and yeah, it looks after its own. I've really thoroughly enjoyed it, and yeah, hope there's a good few more years to come.
Thanks a lot, Rob. Thanks for sharing your wisdom and your knowledge today, and just being the humble person you are, but also super bright and wonderful leader. And it's been a privilege also working with you. And thank you for being on the show and helping a younger Rob this morning. To everybody else, we'll be back with a wrap up at the end. Thank you very much, Rob. You must have a fantastic day.
Thanks, Christo. Much appreciated.
Welcome back, everybody. I am sure you enjoyed that as much as I did. It is shaping our future to keep on learning and keep on growing and learning from people like Rob today. I'd just like to recap what I made notes of and just what has been profound for me this morning or today. Be the playing captain, not just the founder or managing partner or the manager sitting on the grandstand. Stay humble and respond to the needs of your customers and the people that you serve. The second one. And finally, the importance of networking, not only in the consulting space, but also in the corporate world. Those networks will pull you through during tough times. Thank you very much for listening and watching this week. Enjoy your mining, enjoy your business, and have fun doing it. Cheers.